gift is a seed. You can easily be the change that we need. Keep your mind alert and your heart with peace. Be the change that we want to see. Yeah, go and share your gift. Yeah, your gift is a seed. You can easily be the change that we need. Keep your mind alert and fill your heart with peace. Be the change that we want to see. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mentality Unchained. Today, I have a great friend. She's been very dear to me within the last month or so. And I want to say that I enjoy her spirit, her energy. And so I want to talk about some serious things today. A lot of times when I see a lot of clients into my office, they have this shame. They don't know if they should speak about it. They don't know if they should even let the therapist know. And so one of the things that I enjoyed about this young lady is that she's willing and ready to tell her story. And I'm not going to introduce her. I'm going to let her introduce herself. So y'all give a hand for Jeanette Towns. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jeanette Towns. I'm a mother of 2 daughters and a grandmother of 6 active grandchildren. I am a mental health advocate, activist, public speaker, published author, a member of the Winnebago County. I'm an advisor to the Winnebago County Community Mental Health Board, and I am now over the All of Me Mental Health Ministry at New Zion Missionary Baptist Church here in Rockford, Illinois.
Wow. So, she gave us this long litany of titles and accolades, but I want y'all to hear her story about how she got there. And I think that's very important because a lot of times people see what's on the end part of it, right? It's like, oh, they're fine. Everything's all good, but they don't know their story, right? And so today we want to talk to Miss Jeanette about her journey and about where she's going from here. And also, I want you guys to see, this is her book, When Shattered Lives Become Whole. And I want you guys to make sure, I want to say this before we get too far into this, is I want you guys to go and check out her book. We can find this where? Amazon?
Amazon.
Okay.
Yes.
Make sure you go look for When Shattered Lives Become Whole.
In the subtitle?
The subtitle is I Look at Bipolar Disorder from the Inside Out.
Yep.
Okay.
Look at bipolar disorder from the inside out.
So let's start there. Like, I read your book. I like it. It's raw. It's inhibited. It's everything that a person want when they're trying to be encouraged.
Okay.
Because it's straight to the point. It says, hey, this is who I was, this is who I've become, and now this is who I will be. And so I like that because a lot of times you have to read through pages and pages of stuff. You're like, what is the plot about? What is this about? Well, you're just like, here it go. Take it, swallow it, and digest it, how you deal with it, right? So tell us how you started, first of all, to write this book. Why did you write this book?
I was encouraged to write this book because a childhood friend told me that I needed to get out there and tell my story and write a book. Mm-hmm. At the point in my life that she talked to me, I was trying to hide my story. Mm-hmm. And I thought I could just stay in the closet and pretend like I never went through any trauma.
Gotcha.
But God dealt with my heart and I said, okay. Gotcha. And then I outed myself on social media, of all places.
That's the last place you need to be outing yourself.
Right.
On social
And I
media.
started with Facebook.
Oh, people are rude and like they unrelentless, man.
And the amazing part about that is that I never got one negative comment from that day to this.
That's awesome.
Never negativity.
So tell me your story. What's your story? Tell the people what your story is.
Where do you want me to start?
I want you to start. I tell you what. I want you to start how you were misdiagnosed.
I don't know if you could call it a misdiagnosis. First of all, I had some medical malpractice happen to me around 1995.
Okay.
And subsequently, I had my first manic episode. I was immediately put into a mental institution that is now closed.
Gotcha.
And they told me I had bipolar disorder, and I had never heard of it before.
Okay.
So here I am, and they're offering me this old school medication that's super, super strong. And they gave me a piece of paper and said, here are the side effects. My then husband and my children looked at me and said, Mama, don't take it. And I agreed with them, and I didn't take it. The hospital shut down while I was in it.
Wow.
So I was left with no aftercare, no treatment plan, no education, and no medication. So what followed was 10 years of what I call the dark years, the dark time. And I went around being a disaster every single place I went. I destroyed every relationship around me, and I made a mess of everything.
When you, I want you to describe to the people what manic is, because a lot of people don't know what a manic episode looks like.
Okay, when you're manic, you have a super abundance of energy, so you're high. It's for some people it feels like you're high on life.
Okay.
You're up, and sometimes you're up for days. You have boundless energy, and for me, I wanted to cook and clean around the clock.
Okay.
And play my music very loud.
Gotcha.
When you're manic, you're impulsive. You have very poor decision making. So for me, it manifested as tearing up relationships and being, if I can just get raw,
Go ahead.
being hypersexual.
Yeah.
Hypersexuality to a bipolar person is like, it's almost like the part of your brain that says no isn't working.
Gotcha.
So if something looks good, you're going to gravitate towards it, whether it's gambling, whether it's sex. And I was married to a minister, and I just let it all loose.
Gotcha.
With man after man after man, and didn't even have to know their name.
Wow.
Because I was manic.
Yeah.
Let me see, what else can I say about mania? You could also get in a rage at the drop of a hat. You could be having a normal conversation with somebody, and all of a sudden you snap on them.
Right.
And they don't know where it came from.
Gotcha.
And when I was manic, I actually felt good because it was the opposite of being depressed.
Right, which is the other symptom.
The other, end of bipolar. It's like two poles, North Pole, South Pole.
Yep.
Mania, depression.
Yep.
So I spent so many years in such deep, dark depression that mania actually felt good to me.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
It made me feel alive. I was super creative. I had all kinds of business ideas, new recipes, cooking for everybody all the time. I was fun.
Yeah.
I was fun.
Most people would say to have that energy, it's great, because a lot of people suffer from just being unmotivated and depressed. But when it comes to bipolar, the fact that you're up one minute and then you're down the next minute, the effects that it has on the people around you. How did you deal with knowing that you were doing this to your family?
I devastated my family. My two daughters were just stunned by my behavior. My then husband was perplexed. My parents were exasperated. And they're Christians, so they know how to pray. But my father used to pray and worry.
Yeah.
And my mom played the background and just prayed.
Yeah.
And at that time, I thought she didn't care.
Yeah, you said that in the book too.
Yes, I thought my mom didn't care because she wasn't actively dealing with me. She did the most important thing on the planet. She prayed for her daughter.
Really?
My dad, there were times I was homeless.
I love this story. Go ahead and tell this.
By choice. Okay.
Go ahead.
I would get up and I would decide to leave my husband, leave my children, and go live on the streets with whoever was homeless. Wow. And we used to run in packs.
Yeah.
Okay, so we would start at the Rockford Rescue Mission. and eat breakfast. Then we would gravitate towards the bus station, hang out at the bus station, which was across from the police station, but they didn't bother us. Then we would head on down to the library, sit behind the library, and just do nothing all day.
Right.
But I was so much fun. I was accepted by all the homeless men in Rockford.
Really?
There was only like 2 women, and all the rest were men, and they actually protected me. And that's the grace of God.
Most people don't see bipolar victims able to speak about this. And for you to be able to speak in detail, and I know we'll get into this later when we talk about your recovery, but you talk about there are many spaces in your memory from that. But one thing I want to talk about, because we're so close to it, your father, when you were living homeless by choice, would put you in a hotel room.
Yes, Daddy was definitely afraid of me sleeping under a bridge, in a parking garage, or some strange place, a homeless camp. So Daddy would drive around the bus station for hours even, looking for me to make my trek to the bus station. He would catch me on the corner and say, I got you a hotel room. But the thing about it, there was one stipulation.
Okay.
No men could come into my room.
Wow.
So if a male visitor tried to come, the desk would tell them Jeanette cannot have male visitors. And that was his way of protecting me while I was out there.
Wow.
And I so appreciate that. But because of the grace of God, I never got raped. I never got attacked. I never got into drugs. Didn't even drink a drop of alcohol while I was manic. And that's amazing because when a lot of people are manic, drugs go hand in hand. And that's called a co-occurring disorder.
Absolutely.
So you have people that are trying to self-medicate with drugs and alcohol while they're manic and or depressed. So God kept me from all of that.
Thank you for that, because normally I try to give the more politically correct definition, but we need that right there for you to just tell it like it is, right?
Okay, okay.
And I do appreciate that, because that was the next question that I was going to ask you was like, how did you not get involved into the substance abuse because of your manic personality at that time?
It never appealed to me.
Okay.
And I could see what drugs did to others. My big question was, and I would ask everybody, what made you do that for the first time? Where was your mind when you took drugs for the first time? And I would like interview people, you know, and some people it was curiosity, some people it was peer pressure, and some people they were trying to regulate their own moods.
Right.
None of that appealed to me.
What happened when you would run into people that you knew?
Okay, I was raised up in church.
Okay.
But because of where I was in my life, I wasn't around the church folk.
Okay.
So I rarely ran into the church crowd. Okay, because I was so into the subculture at that time. But if perchance someone came over my house when I happened to be home, I hurt them.
Really?
I had a best girlfriend, and she caught me when I was manic, and I started an argument with her. She left out of my house crying and running.
Wow.
I did that to my sister as well. And my sister actually thought when I came outside, she actually thought I was going to run her over.
Really?
That's how manic I was.
Really? Wow.
So I hurt my mother, I hurt my father, I hurt all my siblings, I hurt my children, I hurt anybody in my sphere. I hurt them all.
Did you not go to the church for help, or did you?
No, that was unheard of. This is 1995.
Gotcha.
No one talked about mental illness in church at that time. And it's strange, but another part of being bipolar is some people get hyper religious. And whenever I would go to jail, which is a whole nother story,
Yeah.
I would read my Bible every single day. I would always be placed in SEG. I could never be in general population
Mm-hmm.
because if the correction officers put me in general population, within 5 minutes there was going to be a fight. So they
Really?
would say, "Pull Towns out of there, pull her out,"
Mm-hmm.
and I would have to go back into isolation, and I had to be in a cell by myself 24/7 for everybody else's protection. The strange part about this, because I was raised up in church, the hymns that
Mm-hmm.
I learned were still on the inside of me.
Okay.
At nighttime,
Mm-hmm.
I would start singing those old hymns. Unbeknownst to me, you could hear my voice traveling throughout the whole jail
Mm-hmm.
through the air ventilation system.
Right.
So all of the females that were going to bed would hear me singing, and it calmed them down. And I had no idea.
No idea. You were just manic.
And mannequin singing,
Wow.
reading my Bible,
Did,
singing, because there was nothing else to do in there.
when you let's help somebody. When you're going through a manic episode, how does it feel for the person that is actually going through the manic episode? Does it feel like a normal movement, a normal occurrence? Does it feel? Do you feel the grandiose feeling? Do you feel the bigness of it?
To me, it felt like I was normal and I loved life at the time.
Gotcha.
Only because when I was in depression, I was so suicidal
Mm-hmm.
and unmotivated.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I was manic, I felt motivated. I can start a business.
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. I can do that. So it felt normal, but it was horrifically abnormal.
Gotcha. Gotcha. How did it feel being isolated?
Isolation, I didn't like it
You didn't like
because I'm a social person.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, they would put somebody in the cell with me if there was no room for, for
Mhm.
them in general population.
Mm-hmm.
It never went well.
Okay.
I was actually best by myself. But there was one particular incident where they put a girl in my cell that was a heroin addict,
Okay.
and she was detoxing. And I couldn't understand, why is she going to the toilet all the time and throwing up?
Mm-hmm.
And what was coming out of her was yellow oil.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she actually called it.
Yeah.
There was bile coming out of her. So I began to help her, whether it was holding her hair, holding her hand,
Mm-hmm.
having compassion on her, because I felt, how unfair is it to have someone detox in a cell with no medical treatment? So I actually, in my manic state, had compassion.
I love that. The fact that you're able to have compassion in your manic state. But I don't want to gloss over something. You talked about the treatment. You talked about not having medical accessibility. What's your thoughts on that? Like women or anybody that goes into prisons and jails and not having accessibility to any type of medical treatment. What's your thoughts?
Mental health treatment,
Yes,
maybe?
yes.
I feel that the first thing when someone gets intake,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing they should do is get a mental health assessment.
I agree.
That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, not only assess them, get a doctor in there to see them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, I look at jails and prisons as the largest mental institution in the country.
I agree.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, the reason why people are in and out of jail, in and out of prison, is because they are mentally ill.
Gotcha.
So if that is not addressed, you're just housing someone and just letting their lives be destroyed.
Yeah.
And then you have them around other criminals who teach them more criminal behavior instead of them getting treatment, help, medication, and hope.
I agree with that. I used to work for a particular place here in town, and we would take them to the facility here before they closed. But the thing about it is, once it closed, everyone started going to jail.
Yes.
Jail is not the
Yes.
place for someone that is dealing with mental health issues.
No.
And that's why we have to have these facilities. But here's the problem with they're state run. And when they're state run, the state doesn't feel that these facilities are warranted. Now, here we are, fast forward 10 years later. Now they say we need to focus on mental health. Well, 10 years ago, we started getting rid of these places, and now we're back to square one. Now we're behind.
Right.
And so a lot of those individuals that I dealt with, they end up going to jail instead of in a facility where they can get the proper help.
And they're in and out of jail. It's like a revolving door.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It is.
It's sad. So mental health treatment has to be a priority in the jail and prison system.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so then, here you are in the jail helping this young lady that's going through detox, and that still wasn't the end of your stint, though. Even though you seen and witnessed her going through what she was going through, you still yourself was in and out of jail.
And the strange part about it, you alluded to the fact that I have gaps in my memory.
Uh-huh.
I can't tell you why
Really?
I was in and out, in and out, in and out. And the funny, well, maybe it's funny now.
To you, right?
Yeah, is that my bond was always so low that my dad could have got me out the same day. But he chose not to. You know why?
Why?
He knew where I was.
You know what? I think as a parent, when you got a kid or a child that's going in and out of jail, when they get in jail, you kind of can sleep a little bit. Because I went through that with my brothers and my mother. And so they know where you are, right?
Yes.
And the high probability that you won't get hurt in a jail versus being on the street.
Because he knew I was going to be in SEG. He knew nobody could hurt his baby. Okay?
Smart man.
I had 3 meals. I had a blanket, a toilet, and he knew where I was around the clock. So he would just leave me in there until I went to court, and then they did whatever they were going to do. But one day, okay, I guess I can tell it because it's true. Daddy talked to the state's attorney and said, you better declare my daughter unfit to stand trial and get her some help this time.
Okay.
And he did. So I went to court. And I was so manic, I was rambling in court when I was supposed to be saying nothing. Nothing at all. I was talking about the crime that
and the judge never stopped
brought me there. And he couldn't shut me up. Wow. He could not shut me up. Wow. So automatically I was declared unfit to stand trial, which proved my dad's point. And then I was remanded to a state-run mental health facility, and I was there for 4 months.
So this is how profound that is that you're saying. When our babies and kids get into trouble and they get locked up, we love to go out and try to get the money to get them out.
Bond them out.
And then they come out and do the same thing.
Exactly.
Your dad did the total opposite. He had the money. It wasn't but $100 or $200.
Exactly.
He wanted you to stay in the jail because he knew where you were. He knew you were safe.
Yes.
Then he went a little bit further and said, you better, telling the state's attorney this.
Yes.
That get my daughter into some. Here's the problem that I have with that, though. Is that we have to go to those links in order to get help. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge problem.
It's a very big problem.
Why should we have to force a state attorney to go through all these links to put you in a place to help you?
When I was obviously mentally ill.
Thank you.
Yes.
Obvious.
So the facility I went to was in Elgin, and it's actually called, we just call it Elgin.
Yeah.
And being there changed my life.
Really?
Yes. I had to sit down for 4 months. And one of the first things they did was put me on medication. Now, mind you, it was 10 years that I was a tornado with no medication.
Okay.
So they put me on something, and they're supposed to start you at the lowest dose and titrate up. They did the opposite with me.
So you were just feeling real good and drugged up, right?
And so they put me on the highest dose, and it was like a horse tranquilizer. Then they said, go work out, go to the gym. So I go to the gym and I'm walking around the track and almost passed out. And so they helped me back to my room, and then they realized I was over medicated.
Gotcha.
So they went down on it a little bit, but the mania subsided.
Wow.
Which is what they wanted.
Yeah.
Then they were able to talk to me. They were able to educate me, and they were able to get me some help finally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I noticed, the staff, I'm just going to keep it real. They were mostly African American.
Okay.
And they had such compassion for the patients.
Okay.
On this unit. This was the forensics. I was on the forensics unit with murderers, with rapists, everything across the gamut that could happen criminally. I was with them.
Gotcha.
Okay. And the staff loved them. I remember Christmas when I was there over Christmas, I got more presents for Christmas that year than I ever have in my life. And guess where those presents came from?
The staff?
Out of their pockets.
Wow.
Out of their pockets.
So they really cared about you.
They cared so much that I decided I wanted to work in that field if they would have me.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what ended up happening to me a couple of years later.
Wow.
Is I started working in the mental health field, and I was actually entrusted to take care of 8 schizophrenic men a day.
So you go from unmedicated manic for 10 years to helping someone that deals with schizophrenic.
Yes.
Wow.
8 of them. I would help them do their laundry, clean their home, clean their apartments, take them to their doctor's appointments, and pass their meds. Yeah. They trusted me.
Yeah. I read in your book, though, you said that you didn't think you were ready and or qualified.
I did not think I was either, because bipolar is so damaging to a person. I didn't think I was worthy to have a job where I was entrusted to take care of others.
Gotcha. So
this, my caseworker assured me, Jeanette, you are ready to re-enter the workforce. And I said, well, have you read my chart? You know, and she said, Jeanette, we know who you are.
Yeah.
We know what you did, but this facility hired people with mental illness and gave them a chance.
Why does that not happen more often, where when individuals that had went through mental illness and they're stable, their baseline, they're not given opportunities to give back in that capacity?
Because they're not trusted. And people wonder if they're going to go off the rails at work.
Why didn't you go off the rails?
Because I was stable. Okay. And I had achieved recovery. It took me a couple of years, but I worked on it. And I think the real big part of that was my parents' prayers. Okay. Because I can't tell you the turning point where my sanity returned. But it was nothing but the grace of God. I have to give God the credit for bringing my sanity back. And from that day to this, I've been stable.
So, would you say that a person needs something that they can believe in? I mean, yours was God.
Yes, absolutely.
And in order to come out of something like this, you need to have something to...
You need to reach for something larger than you. And I chose God because I knew Jesus. And Jesus never turned his back on me, but I turned my back on him unbeknownst in my illness. Gotcha. So when my sanity returned, of course I thanked him. I had to thank God because I could have been dead. At any point during those 10 years, I could have been murdered.
I can appreciate your honesty and transparency. I wish that this can reverberate throughout the entire nation, because at the end of the day is that we're all people that is trying to live this life that we're given in a way that we can be productive and that we can love and give back. And I think that once we get to that point if we would ever get to that point, we'll be a better nation, better country, better people. And so I thank you for sharing that piece. So we're going to get into talking about your recovery.
Okay.
So let's talk about recovery. How did you start recovery? Did you think that you had to recover after you got to your baseline? You started working through things. Did you think there were more recovery? What did you think when it came down to recovery?
Okay, because when I was at Elgin, they did such a good job of jump-starting my life. They literally jump-started my life.
Okay.
And got me stabilized medically. I was linked up with a local mental health facility, and I was told to stick with them. So I was so untrustworthy that all my psych meds were in a box that was locked.
When you say box, what do you mean box?
A metal.
I read that you saying embarrassed about carrying it around.
There was
big.
A black metal box.
Wow.
With those psych meds in it. And I had to get on the elevator, go downstairs to the first floor, down a long hallway where everybody can see me holding this box of meds. So if they saw that box, they, oh, she's crazy.
Yeah.
She's on that stuff, you know. So I would take it, and my caseworker would be in that room. So I had to take my meds in front of her twice a day.
Wow.
For I don't know how long. I can't even remember how long I had to do that. Then it came to a point where she began to trust me, and she trusted me to take my psych meds on my own.
Okay.
But I still had to see her every day.
Okay.
The details of what we worked on is blurry at this point, but I was working out my recovery. And she took intensive notes on me, my demeanor, my dress, was I dressing appropriately for the weather? How was my mood? Was I rambling? Was I coherent? And she watched me recover.
So people can get a real glimpse of your recovery. How many times were you arrested?
I think it was 4.
Great. 4 times.
Yes.
Okay. And each time you were in isolation.
Yes.
Okay. And then when you wasn't in isolation and in jail, you were homeless, living homeless.
By choice.
By choice. Yeah, by choice.
And if I decided to go home, I would go home. And my first husband, of course, he'd take me back in because my kids were there. Yeah. And my kids needed me.
Okay. So before I get into the kids, the fact of your recovery and you felt the need that it was time for recovery. You got to the point where you're on baseline. You got your meds now. They got you calm. They got you to a place where you can really process what you're actually dealing with. Did you ever want to give up?
During recovery?
Yeah.
There was one point I did something stupid. I quit taking my meds because I felt good. And that is so common with people with bipolar disorder. They feel like I'm normal now. Let me quit taking my medication.
Gotcha.
Big mistake.
Would you say the caseworker was somewhat of a therapist or a support system to you?
Very, very much so. And to this day, we're friends.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that facility shut down, but her and I, we're still Facebook friends. I'm watching her kids grow up.
Gotcha.
Like she used to watch my kids.
Yeah.
Because she's a lot younger than me.
Wow.
But I wanted to say something that we haven't touched on. It's called anosognosia.
Okay, yep, I'd say, go ahead.
Anosognosia is a big word.
Give it to him straight.
Okay, for saying I didn't know I was ill.
Right.
So for those 10 years, the reason I didn't do anything about it was because I didn't know I was ill.
Yeah.
It is a literal thing. And when you're mentally ill and everybody keeps telling you that, you're crazy, you this, you're that, you don't believe them. Part of your brain is not functioning properly.
Right.
and you have no insight into that mental illness. You have no education about it. So I could look at everybody else and say they're crazy.
Yep.
They're wrong.
Yep.
They're crazy.
Yep.
They have the problem.
Yep.
But once I went to Elgin, I saw that it was me the whole time.
Yeah.
And I did something about it.
When you know, when you find out that you are in a state of unstableness and you figure the best way to go about doing that is to get the help that you need, that's when recovery starts.
Yes.
Because a lot of times people don't think, like you said, they don't think they need help. They don't think that your world is the worst place to be, and you're in the biggest, most exciting place in your life, and they're like, something's not right with you, and you don't see that.
Not at all.
So now let's talk about your kids. Let's talk about your support system. Let's talk about how you came full circle. Like I was reading in there where your youngest daughter talked about how it affected her. Not only how it affected her mentally, but also physically. Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay, the physical. My youngest daughter and I were like two peas in a pod. She was heading towards her teenage years, and we were always together, always.
Right.
So when I got ill, that put some space between us.
Right.
And so, of course, she gravitated to her dad, you know, like, what's wrong with mommy? What's wrong with mommy? So at one point, I was living in Tulsa, Oklahoma for a couple of years, and I was manic pretty much the whole time. And it was to the point where my then husband ran back to Rockford with the kids, and I was left down there.
Right.
Because he's like, I got to take care of these girls, and I cannot fault him for that. So while we were separating, it was the school year. So my youngest daughter, and I'm sure she doesn't mind me saying her name, Jeanette. So Jeanette was going to school. She was in, I think, like 5th or 6th grade or something like that. And she was so stressed out by not having her mother in the same state with her that she broke out from head to toe with something horrific, and it looked like her skin was all coming off.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
She would get out of bed in the morning and she had to shake the sheets because her skin was just flaking off.
Yeah, she said it was like a snake shedding.
Yes.
Wow.
And I never saw it because I wasn't there, and there was no video chat back in 1996.
Right.
So I didn't know what she was going through. So she's at a new school looking like a shedding snake. And guess what she did? She pulled straight A's for the whole school year on every single paper and test. And when it came time for her to graduate, the principal called her up and applauded her for doing that. And she did it all by the grace of God.
Wow.
And without her mom. And I applaud her. So as I continue to be ill, she's in high school, and she's got dreams, aspirations, and goals, but yet her mom is over here sick. So she put some space in between us, and she wouldn't talk to me.
So, you know, I'm not going to let this go. I can't. And this is a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
What?
Why does that make you emotional?
Because that's my baby. And I love her so much. Jeanette made a decision when I was in Elgin to not communicate with me. I would write her letters, but they were manic letters. She wouldn't even open them. As far as I know, she didn't open them. My parents would come down to visit me, and she wouldn't come. And I was so manic. I don't wear makeup, as you can tell.
No.
I was so manic, I would put on makeup and look like a clown. And then my parents would come, and I think I'm looking so pretty, but it was manic makeup. I looked horrible. And my parents were just hopeful that I'd really get some help while I was down there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was smoking. I learned how to smoke when I was quote unquote homeless. And I would, you know, try to bum a cigarette off of somebody. And they said, Jeanette, I'm not going to waste a Newport on you because you don't even know how to inhale.
Right.
So what did I do? I learned how to inhale. And I literally smoked a pack a day for 10 years while I was unstable.
Wow.
Worst decision, because now I have asthma and COPD as a result.
Mm.
So those choices that you make while you're ill can affect you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know. But back to Jonte, she decided not to talk to me. And then she graduated high school, and I wasn't there. I don't even know where I was. And she got a scholarship to go to college, to NIU. And she went on about her life. But she kind of watched my recovery from afar to see if mom was okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's scary.
Yeah, it is. And my oldest daughter turned into the mother.
Yeah.
Of both of us.
So let's talk about that, because I read that in there and I laughed because she said that I wanted mom to be mom again. I wanted to relinquish being mom because I never wanted it. She was almost thrusted into that position of mom as older sister because of what you were going through.
Yes. Her name is Jasmine, and she is an RN. She's not functioning as an RN at this time because she's doing better things.
Okay.
But Jasmine educated herself on bipolar disorder and subsequently became a nurse. But while I was ill, she took care of her sister. There were times the girls did not know if I was dead or alive because they hadn't heard from me. So Jasmine took Jonte under her wing and took care of her on a daily basis. And when I achieved recovery, Jasmine came to me and said, Mom, I want you to be the mother again, and I want to be your daughter.
Powerful.
And she said it in a church. It was a women's retreat. So we got prayed for that day, and the roles switched back to normal. And it's been that way ever since. And she is so much my daughter that even though she's a nurse, when her kids get sick, who does she call? She calls mom.
Yeah.
Mom, my baby has a fever. What do I do? Well, get the fever down.
Yeah.
You know, but I love being back in my place. And they love having their mom. They live in another state. But we talk every single day. We video chat sometimes several times a day, and we text all day long in a group chat. So we've never been closer.
Right.
But God restored our relationship.
You said something in the book also about they asked you to move back with them, and you felt this pull to advocacy. You didn't say it in that term, but you said that you needed to find your own place.
I'm trying to think of which part of the book
When
that is.
when your son-in-law said, "Mom, come move back with us."
Oh, out of town?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you said that I needed to find my place.
Okay, what had happened was, okay, because me and the girls got close again, they got married, they became mothers. Jonte has 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. Jasmine has a boy and a girl. So I gained 2 amazing son-in-laws or son-in-loves.
Yeah.
And my whole life became my grandchildren.
Okay.
And I'm talking about to the point where we were together every day. I was cooking, I was the granny who baked homemade cookies. So when the grandkids got out of school, Granny had some cookies.
Yeah.
Granny taught the kids how to cook. Granny took the kids even to Walmart with her, you know. So my life was nothing but my daughters and my grandkids. So the Lord prompted them to move out to this other state. I can say it because it's public. Arizona.
Okay.
So one of my son-in-laws asked me to move out there with them. He was going to let me live in their home. so I can be with my grandkids, 4 of my grandkids every day. And I tried to go, but the Lord blocked it. And when they left, my world changed.
Really?
Because I began to walk in my purpose and my calling and do what God wanted me to do. And this was just within the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am, almost 60, and my life is just beginning.
That's a big story. Like, you really, in this book here, you encapsulated your entire life. You talked about how you become the person that you are. And now you're advocating, you're fighting for the ones that don't have a voice, that are living in silence. How does that feel?
Amazing. It's amazing because I'm helping people with the help that I didn't get. So when people are in crisis, their loved ones will call me and say, okay, Jeanette, so-and-so's in crisis right now. What do I do? Mm-hmm. So I make phone calls, I talk to people, and I link them up with services.
Gotcha.
And I fight for them. Because since the major mental health facilities shut down, mm-hmm. people don't know where to go.
Right.
They don't know who to call. They don't know who to talk to. They don't know what to do. So they call me. Mm-hmm. And I help them out. And it's like the biggest joy of my life.
You get fulfillment from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because for many years, I did nothing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, aside from the grandkids, which is very important to spend time with your family.
Right, right.
But all those years I was depressed. Mm-hmm. I did nothing. I didn't even talk about the depression. But it was like black. It was dark. Things were in black and white, slow motion. I was suicidal. I would keep the blinds closed, mm-hmm. keep the light off. If I had a garage at the time, I would keep my car in the garage. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't answer the door, and I wouldn't answer the phone. Wow. It was that bad. And one day, I called my pastor and said, Pastor, I'm going to commit suicide. And he said, Sister Jeanette, if you commit suicide, I don't know where you're going to go. And that kept me on the earth.
Really? Wow.
Because I know heaven is real and hell is too. Mm-hmm. So I decided to stay.
Gotcha.
And fight for my life.
I hope that through people hearing your story that they find something bigger than themselves. I hope that they don't find themselves alone, isolated. And I also hope that their family give them that support that they need.
Yes, it's so important.
If you had to give someone that is dealing with bipolar right now some advice, what's the first thing that you would tell them?
Get help. Professional help. And if you go somewhere and that help doesn't pan out for you, mm-hmm. go somewhere else. Always have an advocate or a support system. Okay. And when you go to get help, take that person with you. Mm-hmm. That loved one. It might be a relative. It might be a best friend. Take them with you mm-hmm. and get the help. Do not let stigma and shame stop you from receiving the help that you need.
Yeah, I receive that as well, because I think that putting those two together, stigma and shame, I think we deal with it as a culture. I think we deal with it as a society. And to be honest with you, the society is us, is other people. We're judging people based on their perception.
Okay, when I outed myself, I told you I did it on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I started a private Facebook page after I told part of my story on my page. Mm-hmm. It's called Eliminating Mental Health Stigma. Mm-hmm. And I started the page with my story.
Is it an active page now?
It's an active page.
Okay.
I
Okay.
started the page
Mm-hmm.
telling bits and pieces of my story
Gotcha.
and putting pictures on the page of when I was sick
Mm-hmm.
and when I recovered.
Okay.
And I look like two different people.
Right.
You can literally, my kids taught me this. They can look at pictures of me and tell what state of mind I was in
Wow.
just by the pictures that's even in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So I started eliminating mental health stigma, and I made it private so that people would feel safe
Yep.
to talk
Yep.
about their issues.
Yep.
I have a co-facilitator, and I chose a professional. She's a qualified mental health professional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I chose her because I'm a layperson.
Mm-hmm.
I lived through it, but
Mhm.
she went to school for it. Her name
Gotcha.
is Latricia Russey,
Okay.
and she's a big blessing.
Great.
So we have that balance on the page,
Mm-hmm.
and it is up. It's running. Anybody can request to join
Mm-hmm.
Eliminating Mental Health Stigma.
Thank you for that. And with what you just said, I would like to say this about a safe place is that when we as people realize that we have loved ones that are going through certain things, we have to create that safe place for them. And that safe place is being non-judgmental, listening, being compassionate, being there for them when they need you in crisis. And so when we're creating these safe places, we have to make sure that we're thinking about the person that is actually dealing with that, what they're going through.
Never, ever, ever give up on your family.
Why do you say that?
I say that because if you give up on your loved one that's ill, who are they going to have left on this earth?
Yeah.
Family is who you've bonded with your whole entire life.
Mm-hmm.
But when you become ill, they need to educate themselves so that they can help you.
Thank you.
And in our culture, that doesn't really happen.
Mm-hmm.
We say, I don't know what happened to John. He crazy now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then John might end up homeless because he's making bad choices and he doesn't get the help that he needs. And then you see him on the corner holding a cup and a sign.
Yeah. I would ask everyone that's listening that we remove that word crazy from our vocabulary.
Absolutely.
That is a derogatory, demeaning word. And we don't want to label people as that, as crazy.
There is never, ever, ever a positive context in which to say the word crazy.
Thank you.
Some, I'm not going to say we, some like to say, girl, you so crazy. That's not cool. Don't do it.
Absolutely.
What if someone called you crazy? Would you like it? No. You might have done something funny, but they'll say you're crazy.
Right.
And sometimes when we're mentally ill, that's like beating us down with a hammer to call that person crazy. Why not lift somebody up
Right.
and say, let's go get help together? You don't need to say crazy. You don't need to say, there's a whole list of words I could say that need to be eliminated from people's vocabulary when dealing with the mentally ill person.
Right.
You know, off the rails, crazy, off his rocker. You know, I could go on down the list.
Yeah.
Take those words out of your vocabulary and replace them with positive words, such as, we're going to go get some help. I support you. I love you. One of the loneliest places on earth is to be mentally ill and never hear, I love you anyway.
So this is the time at the end of the show that I always ask for my guests to give advice. Now you've given a plethora of advice that we can take throughout this entire podcast. If you could leave one piece of advice to anybody you choose, what would that be?
I'll have to reiterate something I said earlier. Never let stigma or shame stop you from receiving help, period.
Well, Ms. Towns, I thank you so very much for joining me. This was fun, and I feel like I can talk to you forever. And I really enjoyed myself. I like the authenticity. I love the genuineness. I love the transparency. I love everything about it. And I truly, truly appreciate you coming because you didn't have to, but I appreciate it. And one of the last things that I always tell people when I end the show is that we all have the ability to change our situation only if we can focus on what we can change. The things that are out of our control, we need to let that go and let that deal with itself. But the things that we have control over, we need to make sure that we're taking control over that. So again, I thank you for coming on the show. And please, again, go out and get on Amazon like right now. And her book is When Shattered Lives Become Whole. And the subtopic is A Look at Bipolar Disorder from the Inside Out. Jeanette Towns. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.